Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This video is a continuation of our server Homelab series in Azure, and we are going to be focusing on security policies in this video, and we are going to be implementing the essential security measures for all our computers in the workplace. So basically in this video we are going to be covering how to implement security policies. So security policies are a set of configuration that can be applied on a desktop to enhance security, which is very important in the workplace. So if you are planning on following along this video to create security policies, first you need to have a Windows server installed on a virtual machine or a physical machine. And number two, you need to have Active Directory domain services already set up and installed with all the tools. Number three, group policy management console and a Windows client, whether it's a virtual machine or a physical machine that is joined to a domain. So we're going to start with password policy configuration. We're going to configure and enforce a strong password policy for our Active Directory users, and this is the basics. We are going to configure the minimum password length, the password complexity, and also the password age. And the minimum password length for the Windows server is 8 characters password length. And in 2025, this day of age is no longer considered the minimum. The standard requirement for a strong password, it should be at least 12 characters and more to be considered a strong password in this digital age, and to protect our company and users from cyber attacks. And we have to protect our users by enforcing the security policies. So in my Windows server, I'm currently in my server manager dashboard. What I'm going to do is, on my server manager dashboard, I'm going to go to tools and navigate to group policy management and open my group policy management portal. I'm going to navigate to my forest local and navigate to domains. I can either create a new group policy object, or I can edit the existing default domain policy, or I can edit the default domain policy. So for this video, we are going to edit the default domain policy because we want it to apply to all the Active Directory users under our domain. So under lab.local, I'm going to click on my default domain policy, right click and select edit. And what do we choose in here? Is it going to be computer configuration or user configuration? So this needs to be applied to all computers when the user log in. So we are going to choose computer configuration, and I'm going to select policies. We have, and under policies we have software settings, Windows settings, and administrative templates and preferences. And I'm going to select Windows settings and open security settings, and under account policies there are different policies, and we're going to select password policy, and this is where you can set up the strong password policy for different Active Directory users. There's policy for enforce password history, maximum password age, minimum password age, minimum password length audit, password must meet complexity requirements, relax minimum password length limits, store password using reversible encryption. And I'm going to explain what this policies does. So enforce password history means that here we are setting up the number of passwords that the system should remember, the permanent number of passwords the server should remember, and the maximum password age. So here, like, we are setting up the lifespan of a password, let's say 42 days. So after 42 days the server should forget the password, it never existed. Or after 42 days the password should no longer work and should be removed from the system. And we also have the minimum password length to create stronger passwords. Typically 8 characters is the minimum now. So typically 8 characters is the minimum length now, and it also depends on the company. password must meet complexity requirements. It means that when the system is stricter when setting up a new password, like it's not going to take a basic password, or there's different characters that you should meet before creating the password. For example, it should have certain symbols, a certain number of capital letters, use uppercase and lowercase characters, don't use dictionary words, or use at least 12 characters, don't use your name, use at least one numeric character, incorporate special characters such as, or basically wanting you to create a unique password for each account and not use personal info such as your name or address. And so this is how you configure and enforce a strong password policy for Active Directory users through the group policy. So for my server, it can only remember 4 passwords, and the password age should be 60 days. The minimum password age is 1 day, and the minimum password length is 7 characters, and the password complexity requirement is enabled to protect my users. So what I'm going to do now is try and test my password policy. What I'm going to do now is create a new user. I am going to close this tab and switch back to my server manager dashboard, and on the top right I'm going to click on Tools and navigate to Active Directory, Users and Computers, and click on my forest bacalot tag lab.local, and click on the user group in the USA region. And here I'm going to create a test user. I'm going to right click and select new and click on user, and the name should be test user, and I'm going to create a basic password and confirm my basic password, and I'm gonna check user must change password at next logon, and then click on next, and I'm getting an error saying Windows cannot set the password for test user because the password does not meet the password policy requirements. Check the minimum password length, password complexity, and password history requirements. So basically the server is not allowing me to create this user account with a weak password. So I'm going to go back and create a stronger password. And to be able to test a weak password policy on my virtual machine, I'm going to check user must change password at next login. So I'm going to create a stronger password right now so that I can be able to create this user account on my server, and then I'm going to try to remote into the server with this user account, and then I'm going to try to sign up with a weak password. So I'm going to check user must change the password at next logon and click on next and finish. So I'm going to close this and go back to my Azure portal, and I'm going to remote into the server as test user, and I'm going to type my password. So right now I'm getting an error saying that the credentials that were used to connect to my server did not work. Please enter new credentials. And when I click OK, my remote client is telling me you must change your password before logging in. You must change your password before logging on the first time. Please update your password or contact your system administrator or technical support. So the user must change password at next login. I recommend doing it on the server directly, not using a virtual machine client to remote to your server. You need to actually log into your server directly, and then the screen will show up asking you to change your password. I don't think it will work when you try to remote your server using a client. You only see these error messages I just showed you. And the other reason why is that I think the test user doesn't have admin privileges, so hence the limited permission and access to the server. And now we are moving on to user rights policies, which is assigning and restrict user rights to enhance security. And this is more of rule-based access. We can restrict different user groups for different user tasks. For example, we can deny local users to locally directly to the servers, because we don't want them to be messing around with the servers if they can figure out how to do it or accidentally logging to the server and press the wrong button. And we are also going to go through restricting and allowing user access to remote desktop, so standard users can log into other servers and computers remotely using RDS. So in my group policy management, I'm going to click on my forest, local, and I'm going to click on my domain. Under the USA group, I'm going to click on group policy object, and I'm going to create a new group policy object. I'm going to rename this to user rights, and I'm going to navigate to my user rights policy object and click on edit, and you can see there's computer configuration, and at the bottom there's user configuration. So computer configuration means that the policy will apply to all the computers and users, and I'm going to click on policies and go to Windows settings, and I'm going to select security settings, and under local policies I'm going to select user rights assignment. So the first thing we're going to do is set up deny. So the first example we're going to do is deny logon locally. I'm going to look for deny logon locally in these policies, and I'm going to click on it and check define these policies, and I'm going to add groups and users who should not log on to the server locally. So you need to ensure that you have groups added into Active Directory, so you have something to add to this lab. We have groups for different regions, USA. So in my USA group I have accounting, HR and sales departments. I'm going to type in the HR department, so I'm going to type HR and check names, and the HR department should show up, and that's what we're going to add in this restriction. And then next we want to specify groups and users who are allowed to use remote desktop RDS. So I'm going to search for the policy to allow log on through remote desktop services RDS, and I'm going to click on define this policy settings so that it is active. So after setting up this policy restriction, I'm going to close this tab and navigate to my Active Directory, users and computers, and in my USA regional group, under the HR department we have Jane and John. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to test the deny logon locally policy. I'm going to click on the bottom left of my server, and I'm going to manually sign out of this server, and I'm going to directly RTP to my server as Jane. I'm going to type in my domain username jane@takalotechlabs.local, and I'm going to type in my password. As you can see, I'm getting an error message from my RDP client. It says the connection was denied because the user account is not authorized for remote login. And if I try to do the same with John, who's also in the HR department, I should also get the same error. I'm going to type in my domain username and type in my password and try to remotely log in directly to my server. And I'm also getting the same error. The user account is not authorized for remote login. And I won't be going through the account lockout policy for this video. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log in to my server as lab user, and for the last part of the video I'll be walking you guys through the implementation of fine-grained password policies, which is applying different password policies to different groups of users. For example, your company organization wants to apply stricter password policies to admin users while allowing standard users to have more lenient requirements, or vice versa. You want admins to have less stricter requirements and standard users have stricter requirements. So I'm going to show you how we can implement this security policy. So the concept of applying different password policies to different groups of users is called the fine-grained password policies in Windows Server, and we also use different tools other than the group policy management to implement this, since this is more advanced settings. So for this configuration, we are not going to be using group policy. We are going to be using a tool called the Active Directory Administrative Center, and you can find it under your Windows admin tools. You can either search for it on the search bar at the bottom right. You can type Active Directory Administrative Center, but I like to just go to the server manager and click on tools, and it's always at the top. I'm going to click on Active Directory Administrative Center, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to resize this tab, and on the top right, on top of overview, I'm going to search for my domain controller. I'm going to click on my domain name, takalotaglab.local, and the container will pop up, and I'm going to navigate to system and select system, and click on password settings container. And what I'm going to do here is create a new password settings object, PSO. And in my password settings container, I'm going to navigate to the upper right and click on new and password settings. And this is where I'm going to type in the name for my password settings. So the name for my password setting is going to be admin password policy. And then next, it's the precedence. This determines the order in which policy objects are applied when multiple password settings are applied to a user group. So the password setting with the lowest precedence number has the highest priority and will be applied. So let's say a user has two password settings. The first password setting has a precedence of 10, and the second password setting has the precedence of 90. So the one with the lower number has more authority and will take precedence, and it's the one with precedence 10. So for this password policy, I'm going to put number 1, and for these password settings, we can edit these policies to make stricter password requirements for the admin. For example, enforce minimum password length. Minimum password length is 15 characters. Enforce password history, and the number of password remembered is 5. And I'm not going to check store password using reversible encryption, and I'm going to check protect from accidental deletion, and I'm going to check enforce minimum password age and check maximum password age. And I'm not going to enforce the account lockout policy, reset failed login attempts account after 30 attempts, reset failed login attempts count after 15 for accounts will be logged out for a duration of 30 minutes. And at the bottom, I can click on add to add the groups I want this password settings to apply to. In this case, I'm going to select the group for IT admin group, and then I'm going to click OK, and now I'm going to create another password settings for users and follow the same process. The name for the password settings, it's going to be user password policy, and the precedence is going to be 2 so that it becomes lower than the admin password settings. And I'm going to enforce the password policies for stricter requirements. I'm going to enforce the minimum password length to 10 characters and enforce the password history. The number of passwords remembered should be 5, and I'm going to check password must meet complexity requirements, and I'm going to check protect from accidental deletion, and I'm going to enforce the minimum password age, and I'm going to check the maximum password age, and I won't be enforcing the account lockout policy, and I'm going to click on add at the bottom, and I'm going to click on add at the bottom right, and I'm going to enforce this password settings to the HR department. I'm going to type in HR, check names, and select the HR department group. And now we have 2 password settings. Okay, that's it for this video for our Windows Server Home Labs in Azure. Thank you.